now go to our Tamid. We stopped learning the Mishnayos Perek Dalet. We ended with Mishnah Aleph, which was the Shechita and the Zerika of the Korban Tamid. We're now looking at the V'Hasheves Avoda to put all the Avoda sort of into some kind of order. We're using the pictures and we're using the halachic explanations of the V'Hasheves Avoda. We went through yesterday the Kohanim arriving. Last night they went to sleep in the Beis Hamoked. They woke up this morning very early before dawn. Those who were interested, first there was a knock on the door of the Beis Hamoked, wake everybody up. The supervisor of the pious came in, and those Kohanim who were interested in doing Trumas Hadeshen had gone downstairs in the Beis Hamoked. There was a staircase that went down into a tunnel under the Beis Hamikdash where there was a mikveh. Those who were interested in being part of the lottery for the Trumas Hadeshen, they joined the first lottery, which according to most occurred in the Beis Hamoked. The Rambam says it occurred in the Lishkas HaGazos. There are 4 lotteries in the morning. We're dealing now with the first lottery. There's only one winner to lottery 1. And that is the Kohen that's going to do the Trumas Hadeshen. He's going to walk out of the Beis Hamoked into the Azorah to the Mizbeach and take some ash off the top of the Mizbeach. I'll need this diagram 3. Here's the Beis Hamoked. The Kohen is going to walk out of the Beis Hamoked, the winner of the lottery. He's going to walk through this area. He's going to come to the Kiyar. He's going to wash his hands and his feet. He's going to take the little shovel from the western side of the ramp of the Mizbeach. He's going to walk up the ramp, take a little ash off, walk back down the ramp, come to the eastern side of the Mizbeach. You can see in your picture there's a Beis Hadeshen in the floor, and he's going to deposit that shovel full of ash right there. And that is the end of the Trumas Hadeshen, although the winner of the first lottery is going to do other things as well. It's not just Trumas Hadeshen. And that's what we're up to right now, page 57 in the V'Hasheves Avoda. Hapayis Harishon, Perek Dalet Hapayis Harishon, chapter 4 of V'Hasheves Avoda, the first lottery. Hapayis Harishon. Aleph, after the Kohanim gathered together in, for us, the Beis Hamoked, where they slept, those who were interested went downstairs and toivel. They came back upstairs. They put on their big day kahuna, their 4 garments. Osim es hapayis harishon. They then engaged in the first lottery. Shebo zocha kohen echa b'trumas hadeshen. One kohen is the winner of the first lottery, and he is going to do the trumas hadeshen. Din hapayis, the laws of the lottery. Beis, kol ha'avodo shel tzipor, underline, and this is what we emphasized for several days. We are talking about lotteries in the Beis Hamikdash in the morning, only in connection with offerings brought, public offerings brought for the Jewish people. Every day for the Jewish people, a korban tzibur. There was a korban tamid in the morning. There was a korban tamid in the afternoon. The pious, the 4 lotteries were only done in the morning. So the winner, let's skip Trumas Hadeshen because that was only done in the morning. But for example, in lottery number 2, there was a winner who shechted the korban tamid in the morning. He was the same Kohen that shechted the korban tamid in the afternoon. During lottery number 2, there was a winner who got to sprinkle the blood. He sprinkled the blood of the korban tamid in the morning, and he did the korban tamid sprinkling of the blood in the afternoon. They didn't have a new set of lotteries in the afternoon. You won in the morning, you're the same winner for that same avoda in the afternoon. The pious is only for korban tzibur, public offerings, which means we need a pious for who's going to bring the carbon Tamid in the morning. We need a pious on Shabbos. There's going to be a carbon Musaf. On Yontif, there are going to be additional carbonas. On Shabbos is a separate issue. But anytime there's a public offering, you're going to have to divide the work of the Kohanim through a pious. Again, the Kohanim arrive every 24 weeks in shifts. The Kohanim arrive every 24 weeks in shifts, and each shift is split into 6 days. So today would be, let's call it Reuven week. The name of this week's Kohanim are called the shift of Reuven, and today is Tuesday shift of Reuven. So today there would be a lottery for the Tuesday shift of Reuven for who's going to do the work of the public offerings today in the Beis HaMikdash. Back to page 57. Kol ha'avoda shel tzibur hanasos b'mikdash b'chol yom. All the work of a carbon tzibur, and not only a carbon, it could be the work of other avoda. Who lights the menorah? That's public work. It's not private avoda. Who is going to bring the ketores? That's public avoda. It's for all of Klal Yisrael. So whatever is being done for the nation requires a pious to determine which Kohen is going to do it. V'chol Kohen ma'kohanim shel Beis Av, and every Kohen of the Beis Av is the word that's used, the 2 words that are used to describe today's particular group. We're in Reuven week, and today's group or today's shift is called the Beis Av of Tuesday. Anyone that's in today's Tuesday shift and wants to partake in the Trumas Hadeshin, he came and he joined into the pious. At the bottom of page 57, you have a picture. According, as we said, to most Mefarshim, the first pious for who does Trumas Hadeshin occurred in the Beis HaMoked. The Kohanim slept in the Beis HaMoked. The door was opened before dawn. They toiveled before they came up. They're still in the Beis HaMoked, except for the Rambam who says they went to the Lishkas HaGazes. They're still in the Beis HaMoked. Midos number 3. We can see the Beis HaMoked. Part of the Beis HaMoked is outside the Azorah. Part of the Beis HaMoked is inside the Azorah. The Kohanim who are going to partake in the pious would be in the southern side of the Beis HaMoked, which is a place you cannot sit. It's in the Azorah. Only a sign of the Davidic dynasty can sit there. And this is where the Kohanim who are going to be part of the lottery would stand. Because since the Gemara learns it out that the pious had to be done in quote-unquote b'makom kadosh, in a holy place. So therefore, the Kohanim who were interested in doing the Trumas Hadeshin, they went to the southern half of the Beis HaMoked, which is now inside the confines of the Azorah. And there they would stand, and the pious would take place. Page 58, Mokum HaPayis. Where did this lottery take place? HaPayis Harishon Hayanasa Beis HaMoked. The first of the 4 lotteries occurred in the Beis HaMoked. The last 3 lotteries, lottery number 2 we've already learned about. We haven't reviewed it yet, but we've learned about lottery 2. Lottery 2 had the 13 separate winners that deal with the offering itself of the carbon. Who will shecht it? Who will sprinkle the blood? Who will clean off the inner mizbeach? Who will clean the menorah in the 2 shifts, 5 and 2? That's the second lottery. Everyone holds. That lottery 2, 3, and 4 occurred in the Lishkas HaGazes. Midos number 3, northern wall, Lishkas HaGazes. Most Mefarshim, however, hold that lottery 1 occurred where the Kohanim woke up right here in the Beis HaMoked. The Rambam says no, the Kohanim that were interested in Trumas Hadeshin got to the Beis HaMoked, and the lottery, even number 1 for Trumas Hadeshin, was in the Beis HaMoked. We've been learning the first lottery is in the Beis HaMoked, the other 3 are in the Lishkas HaGazes. So on page 58, Hapayas Harishon, Hoyanasa Beis Hamokeh. The first pious was in the Beis Hamokeh. Ubayas Chetzio Bonri B'chol. Half of the Beis Hamokeh, as we saw in Midos diagram 3, is in the whole area. It's outside the Azor, it's in the Chayil. The Chetzio Bonri B'Kodesh, and half of the Beis Hamokeh is in the Azor itself. The pious was done in the southern part of the Beis Hamokeh, which means it was inside the area of the Azorah, and therefore is b'makom kadosh. The Kohanim had a stand. V'yesh omrim, and some say shoyanasa b'lishkas hagozis k'shah hapayis. Some say that even this first lottery for Trumas Hadeshin was done in the Lishkas Hagazis, like the last three. If you take a look at footnote 3, Kehi Das Rambam. That's what we mentioned. The Rambam holds all 4 lotteries were done in the Lishkas Hagazis. We have been learning that the first lottery occurred in the Beis Hamokeh, where the Kohanim slept and woke up. The last 3 went to Lishkas Hagazis. Dalit Zokein Shel Habeis in Yoshib B'Mayrav Halishka Umor Lahem Seder Ha'es V'Dina. If you hold like the Rambam, you have a picture at the bottom of page 58, picture 30. You have a picture of what the Lishkas Hagazis would look like. If you take a look at Midos diagram 3, although it's not clear, the Lishkas Hagazis also, part of it was in the Azorah, and part of it was outside the Azorah. We learned about this at the end of Midos. So you have the same issue as the Beis Hamokeh. There's part of the Beis Hamokeh in which you can sit, and part of the Beis Hamokeh in which you can't sit. Same thing is true for the Lishkas Hagazis. There's part of the Lishkas Hagazis in which you can sit, and part of the Lishkas Hagazis in which you cannot sit. The picture 30 at the bottom of page 58 is showing you a depiction of the Lishkas Hagazis. You can see that the room has been split into 2, and the way this diagram does it is by having a sunken floor. I don't know why they did that, but they're just trying to separate the part in which you can sit, and you can see in the picture, there's a member of the Sanhedrin sitting at a table, because that's the part of the Lishkas Hagazis in which you can sit. The Kohanim are standing in the other part of Lishkas Hagazis, because that's the part of the Lishkas Hagazis in the Azorah, and they have to stand. So if you hold like the Rambam, that the pious, the first lottery occurred in the Lishkas Hagazis, that would sort of be a picture. There would be an elder of the Sanhedrin sitting, telling them the rules of the lottery. The Kohanim themselves would be standing in an area of the Lishkas Hagazis that's in the Kodesh, in the Azorah. You can easily just imagine that picture number 30 is, instead of the Lishkas Hagazis, it's the Beis Hamokeh, where, according to, as we mentioned, most commentaries, the first pious occurred. So you can imagine that the picture at the bottom, instead of being Lishkas Hagazis, it's the Beis Hamokeh. The Kohanim are standing in the southern part of the Beis Hamokeh, and they have to be standing. And the other half of the Beis Hamokeh is where you can sit. Okay. Page 58. Seder Asiyas Hapayis. The way that you actually conduct the lottery. So if you take a look at picture 31, you can see the Kohanim are standing in a circle, and in the middle of the circle, there is the Mamuna, the supervisor of the pious, the supervisor of the lottery. Page 59, diagram 31. And Seder Asiyas Hapayis, hey. HaKohanim omdim be'igel, the Kohanim stand in a circle. Umaskimim beineim al mispa kol shehu. This is the shita of the Rambam. The footnotes at the bottom explain that there are different shitos about the technical details of how the lottery was performed. When we learned the Mishnah, we learned it not according to the shita of the Rambam. We said that the supervisor of the lottery would take a look at how many Kohanim were dressed in their big day kahuna, and he would estimate in his mind, looks like there are 20 here. And then he would pick a number, 64, 82, 71. He would announce the number 71. And the Kohanim would stick out their fingers and he'd start counting. The Rambam says that the supervisor didn't pick the number. The number was done by agreement. The 20 Kohanim or the 18 Kohanim, whatever amount Kohanim were there, they would agree on a number. What number is agreeable today? 52. Okay, no, I want 58. Okay, and they would somehow come to an agreement on a number rather than the supervisor picking the number. That's the Rambam Shita. We have learned the Mishnah that the supervisor simply picked the number. The supervisor of the lottery then says to them, put out the fingers. Each Kohen then can put out one finger or two fingers. Take a look at picture number 32. Okay, depiction of Kohanim with their fingers. You obviously couldn't count heads. There's a biblical prohibition to count Jews by heads. Kisisa Rosh B'nai Yisrael, you have to use a maktis shekel. You can't just do body counts. Vim hotzi gimel etzbos monolo gimel. And if a Kohen, we instruct them only put out one or two fingers. A Kohen that put out three fingers, the Rambam says he was still permitted to be part of the lottery, and you counted the three fingers. Very interesting halacha comes from the Gemara. A Kohen was not allowed to use his thumb as one of the fingers. He can put out 1, 2, 3 fingers. Particularly, he should use 1 or 2. If he wants to put out 3, he can put out 3, but never do you put out your thumb. Why? Because of the people that want to defraud the system of the lottery. Sheyesh lachashosh sheksheyira shehaminyan omed lehistayim eitzel chaveiro yemaher v'yotzi godlo below sheagishu bedova kiven shu kotze v'noach leho lotzio v'lachaposo. You can have a Kohen. Let's make believe the number was 82. At the beginning, you don't know. Let's say you have 20 Kohanim in the circle, number is 82. At that moment, nobody really knows, unless you're an unbelievable math genius, nobody knows where 82 is going to end up. But as you get closer to 82, let's say the Mamuna is counting, and he goes 78, 79. Basically, at that point, the person who has finger 82 out knows he's the winner. So the person to his left decides that he's going to be the winner because he's one off. 82 will be the person right next to me, but I can become 82. I have 2 fingers out. The person to my right is going to be 82. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put out my thumb suddenly. Nobody will know about it because it's a short finger, and I can suddenly pop out that thumb, and nobody would know the difference. And 82 would be me instead of the person to my right. So the system of the lottery can be defrauded through flicking out your thumb at the last second. It's a little finger that nobody would notice. And therefore, you can defraud the lottery system. So it was not permitted to use your thumb in the lottery system. And now in brackets it says, and this comes from a Rambam, Gemara, then the Rambam, V'imhotzi hagodel, if a Kohen did in fact stick out his thumb, ein monen oso klal. Not only don't you count the thumb, you don't count that Kohen at all. You skip him altogether as a penalty for sticking out his thumb. If you look at footnote 9, at the bottom of the page, it says, Ukshahotzi godel, and a Kohen that would use a thumb during the lottery, Malkin oso alka. they would actually give him a couple of good lashes for violating the rules of the lottery and trying to defraud the Kohanim in the lottery. So not only wouldn't he be counted, he would get a couple of Geshmaka Petch for trying to defraud the lottery system. Okay. All these rules were taught to the Kohanim. Remember, again, they're only showing up every 24 weeks. And in that 24-week system, for the most part, they're only going to get an opportunity to do the avoda one day during the week. Everybody's going to work on Shabbos. But during the 6 days, they're going to get one opportunity during that day to be part of the avoda of the tzibur. Yiddelach are going to be coming into the Beis HaMikdash to bring a korban toda, a korban shlomo, a korban chatas, a korban asher, a korban ola, nazir, all kinds of korbanos, private korbanos. For that, we already we said earlier this morning, the system of the lottery was meant for public korbanos. When the Yiddelach walked in with their own private korbanos, a completely different system operated. And the Kohanim, the Tuesday Kohanim, all of them had an opportunity to do avoda depending upon how many private korbanos were brought that day. But in terms of public offerings, the korban tamid had to be a lottery. So the korban tamid, the opportunity to be part of the korban tamid occurred once every 24 weeks. And even in that 24 weeks, it only occurred one day of that 24 week for a particular Kohen. So once the pious system was put into place, before the pious was done, the order and the laws of the pious were explained to the Kohanim. So if you take a look at page 58, at the bottom of page 30, they're showing you a member of the Sanhedrin sitting, and he's explaining to the Kohanim who are standing the rules of the lottery. So for example, he would explain to them, you are to stand in a circle, use only one or two fingers. If you stick out your thumb, you won't be counted. If you stick out your thumb, you're going to get a couple of petch. All the rules were explained to them if they had forgotten them in the 24 weeks that they hadn't been in the Beis HaMikdash. Page 60. Hamamuna maschil limnos mikohen echad shekavu shebo yaschilu limnos. The supervisor of the lottery would begin counting from the person who was the designated number one. And who was designated number one? Umesamnim also al yidei shemasir mimenu es hamidbas. We learned that. The mamuna, the supervisor, would just pick arbitrarily one of the Kohanim in the circle and take off his hat. You take a look at picture 33 on page 60. The mamuna is taking off the mikbas of one of the Kohanim, and that is the sign that he's going to be number one, and the count is going to go from there to the right, all around, round and round, till you get to the number. And the purpose of that is to keep the system fair. If the mamuna forgot where he was up to, 22, 24, 20, he forgot. So rather than starting the count over again, well, that's a question. How can a Kohen stand in the Kodesh without a hat? Okay, we'll deal with that in a moment. It's in your notes, in your V'hashem Es Avoda. The mamuna, to keep the system fair, if he lost track of his number, he wouldn't want to start again with a different Kohen, because that means that the person who would have won the first count is not going to win the second count if he starts with a new person. So they designated this person without the hat on as the starting point. So if the mamuna, the supervisor, lost track, he'd go right back to that person whose hat was taken off and start counting again. We had a question from, I believe, Mrs. Zabrowski. And how can the Kohen stand in the Beis HaMoked or the Lishkas Hagazis without a hat on? Footnote number 10 on page 60. Hasoras hamikbas hirak letzorach simin she'akiru kulam shemimenu hiskilu limnos. Taking off the hat was done only as a sign so we know where we started. However, immediately afterwards, the hat would be put back onto the Kohen. In other words, the Mamuna would pick one of the Kohanim, take off the hat, and now everyone in the circle knew that he is number one because that's the sign. The hat's off, he's number one, the hat goes back on, and everybody now remembers that he is number one. Kain Kosef HaRambam, that's what the Rambam writes. When we call Makom Hayamatzur ala Mikbas, Allah HaMikbas Bavin Roge. Nevertheless, even though the hat was put back on his head, it wasn't put back on his head in the usual way. It wasn't sitting perfectly on his head. It was sitting sort of in an unusual way. So now his head was covered. But if the Mamuna forgot where he started from, he was able to go back to that Kohen because the hat would not be in its usual place on this Kohen's head. Back to Halacha 6. Umone ha'etzbos k'fi ha'mismar shesikmu b'tchila. He counts the fingers according to the number that was agreed upon. V'chozeh chalili, he goes round and round. Al ha'etzbos ad shemasayim ha'mismar shekavu. He goes round and round till he gets to the number. Umisha mistayim bo ha'mismar huzachu payis. Where the number ends, that is your winner. Zayin. Misha Zacha B'Payis, the Kohen who won lottery number 1, and he's whatever, number 82, who Torem Es Hadeshin, he is going to take that shovel full of ash off the Mizbeach. This is the first lottery, is the lottery for Trumas Hadeshin, but that's not the only thing he's going to do. We learned this when we started Masechta Tamid. The person who did Trumas Hadeshin did it before dawn. He had to get up very early before dawn. He still had to go to the mikvah. He had to put on his big day kahuna. He got up very early. And Chazal wanted to make sure that there would be a good amount of participation in the lottery. And so if the only thing the winner of the lottery got to do was to take some ash off the Mizbeach, they feared that there wouldn't be much participation or much interest in the lottery. So therefore, Chazal added jobs, added privileges to the winner of the first lottery. And that's what's being described here in Zion. Misha Zacha B'Payis, who Torem Es Hadeshin, he takes the shovel full of ash off the Mizbeach, who Kamokain, similarly, he had the privilege of doing additional avoda. Vehem siddur hamarocha. He would set up the logs on the mizbeach. We said that the top of the mizbeach had to be cleaned off from the wood and the animals that hadn't been consumed the day before, and new logs were brought to the mizbeach. If you go to page 75 in your Vahasheves Avoda, 75, 76, 77, you will see the pictures of Kohanim bringing logs. Obviously, the one Kohen who won the lottery couldn't schlep all the logs himself to the Mizbeach. So there were Kohanim who helped him bring logs to the Mizbeach. But once the logs got to the Mizbeach, you take a look at page 76, 77, once the logs actually got to the Mizbeach, the winner of lottery 1 set them up. We learned how he set them up. We're going to come to that probably tomorrow in our Vahasheves Avoda, the review of how he set up the logs. But the setting up of the logs was his privilege. And going to page 75, you have the Maracha Gedola. which was on the eastern side of the Mizbeach, and that was where carbonis were placed for consumption by fire. On the western side of the Mizbeach, you have the Marocha Shel Ketores. That's where they created a fire of logs from which they would take coals, bring it into the Heichal, and burn the Ketores on the Mizbeach. Then there was the Marocha. We're not going to deal with that right now. There was the third Marocha that was for the purpose of making sure there was a 24/7 fire there. And again, we're not dealing with this right now. In the middle of the Mizbeach, on page 77, 75, you can see the Tapuach, the gathering of ash in the middle of the Mizbeach. So back to page 60. Misha Zocha Zayin, Misha Zocha Bapayas, Utormes Hadeshen, the one who won the first lottery is going to be Torah the Deshen, Ukumoken Hayazocha Bakamatorm Nosofim. He also had the privilege of doing additional things. Vehem, Sidam Hamarocha, he would set up the logs, the big Marocha for the Karbonos, and the small Marocha to create coals to bring in for the Ketoras. V'halos shnei gisrei eitzim v'atzas hamarochos. This is not in the order that we learned it. Besides setting up the logs, this Kohen who won the first lottery, he would set fire to the Marocha Gedola. He would set fire to the Marocha of the Ketores. He would then be zocher to the special mitzvah of Shnei Gizrei Eitzim. After the fire on the Marocha Gedola was ignited, the Kohen who won the first lottery would take 2 pieces of wood and throw it onto the existing fire. And you can take a look at that on page 79, diagram 61. Page 79, diagram 61. Nasinas abeis had gizrin al gabe hamarocha. The large group of logs where animals would be consumed later in the day is already ignited. The Kohen who won the Trumas Hadeshen has 2 pieces of wood. That's a mitzvah of Shnei Gezirei Eitzim. He would throw those 2 pieces of wood on the ignited Marocha Gedola. So the person who won the first lottery, he is going to do the Trumas Hadeshen. He is going to take the shovel of ash off the top of the Mizbeach. He is going to be zocher to set up the 2 marachos of wood, the Marocha Gedola for Karbonis, the Marocha for Ketoris, to create coals to bring into the Heichel, for the Mizbeach Ketoris. We look at Midos diagram number 3. You have the Marocha, a small Marocha here. Here's the large Marocha, the east of the Mizbeach for the consumption of Karbonis. Small Marocha. This Marocha created, this logs ignited, created coals. The coals would then be brought in up the steps, the 12 steps, through the Ulam, into the Heichel, and put on the inner Mizbeach. And once that's on the inner Mizbeach, you can then, a different Kohen would put incense on the Mizbeach. So in order to burn the incense on the Mizbeach in the Heichel, you needed fire. Where did that fire come from? From the coals that were made on the outside Mizbeach, on the Marocha of Ketoris. Where did the fire come from? The fire came generally, if you take a look, V'hashev es havoda, page 79, diagram 60, showing you a Kohen coming in with the fire, and in all likelihood, that would be the Kohen who won the lottery won. Where did he get that fire from? So we're out of order here, but to answer the question, page 79. Even though a miracle occurred in the Beis Hamikdash, that fire came down from heaven to the Mizbeach, notwithstanding the fire that came down from heaven, a human being, a Kohen, also had to put fire on the Mizbeach. Many lessons to be learned from there, that while God assists us in our avodas Hashem, we also have to bring fire to the Mizbeach. We can't just rely on the fire that comes down from heaven. The fire was brought from the nitzutz room, and some say from the Beis Hamoked. Remember, we go back to Midos diagram 3. There's an entryway into the Azorah on the northern wall that's called Shar HaNitzutz. On top of that entranceway, there was a place called Beis HaNitzutz, the house of the spark. And there was a fire kept in there to be able to bring fire to the Mizbeach. That's one opinion, the Beis HaNitzutz. And why is that Beis HaNitzutz known to us? It's known to us because yesterday we reviewed it. The Kohanim guarded the Beis HaMikdash in 3 places. What are the 3 places the Kohanim guarded the Beis HaMikdash? On the southern wall in the Beis Avtinus, on the northern wall in the Beis HaNitzutz, and on the northern wall in the Beis Hamoked. So this Beis HaNitzutz is well known to us. It's one of the 3 places Kohanim guarded at night. Beis HaNitzutz, the room of the spark. And they kept a fire in there so that a Kohen would be able to bring fire to the Mizbeach. That's one shita. The other shita is the fire was brought from the next room, the Beis HaMoked. Moked. Everybody know what Moked is? Moked is a fire. It's to kindle, the room of the kindling. Why was it called the room of the kindling? Because in the middle of that room, there was a large fire. Remember, we learned about the Beis HaMoked. There was a large fire in the middle of the Beis HaMoked where the Kohanim were able to go in and warm their bodies. They were not wearing sandals or socks because their bare feet had to touch the floor of the Beis HaMikdash as they're doing their avodah. And in the Beis HaMoked, in the middle of Beis HaMoked, there was a large fire where the Kohanim could come in and warm themselves. So there are 2 places that have constant fires in the Beis HaMikdash. The Beis HaMoked in the middle. You can take a look at it if you'd like. Page 53, there's a diagram of the Beis HaMoked with the fire in the middle. The other opinion is the fire came from the Beis HaNitzutz, the room of the spark. And that's where a Kohen, probably the Kohen who won the first lottery would bring the fire to the Mizbeach, ignite the Marocha Gedola, ignite the Marocha Ketana, and then throw the 2 additional pieces of wood, the Shnei Gezirei Eitzim, on top of the Marocha Gedola. So the person who won the first lottery, let's see how many jobs he has. He is going to do the Trumas Hadeshen. He's going to take the ash, a shovel full of ash off the top of the Mizbeach. After other Kohanim bring logs to the Mizbeach, he's going to set up the Marocha Gedol on top of the Mizbeach so that the new Karbonos can be brought. He's going to take logs that were brought by other Kohanim and he's going to set them up on the top of the Mizbeach, the western side of the Mizbeach, for the Marocha of Ketores to create coals that will be brought into the Heichel to burn Ketores. So he already has 3 jobs. He is going to ignite the 2 Marochos, the 2 sets of logs. That's, I believe, 4. He's going to take off the Trumas Hadeshen. He's going to set up the Marocha Gedol. He's going to set up the Marocha Ketana. He's going to ignite the Marocha Gedol, the Marocha Ketana. And number 5, he's going to do the mitzvah of Shnei Gezirei Eitzim. He's going to take additional 2 pieces of wood and throw it on the Marocha Gedol. Ches, page 60. Hazocha b'payis, the person that was zocha in doing the lottery, Einay Rashi litain eschus havoda lekohen acher elhu atzmo osa osa. Winning the lottery was not winning a private piece of property. You couldn't sell it to someone else. You couldn't give it away to someone else. You won the lottery. You were zoicha to do that mitzvah. It was improper. It was a bezoyan to win the lottery and then give it away to someone else to do. So you were not allowed to give it away to someone else to do the mitzvah. An interesting halacha is brought down here in footnote 13 at the bottom of page 60. Misha zacha b'payis harei ha'avoda hi shelo v'en kon acher rashi lakachas osa mimenu. Obviously, we just mentioned that the Kohen who won the lottery, he can't decide, I'm going to give it to my buddy. He did me such a nice favor yesterday. I think I won the lottery. I'm going to let him do the Trumas Hadesh. You're not allowed to do that. You won, you must do the avoda, otherwise it's a design for the avoda. Obviously, if I won the lottery, another Kohen can't jump and take that away from me. I can't give it to him, and he can't jump in and just do it. He stole a mitzvah from me. Now, what happens if you steal a mitzvah from someone? Can you take him to Beis Din, and will Beis Din give you money for someone stealing a mitzvah from you? So this is not a subject that deals necessarily with Trumas Hadeshin. It's a global subject that's dealt with in Gemara Bava Kama, Gemara in Chulin, Hachotev mitzvah. Somebody chaps a mitzvah that you're supposed to do, and he does it before you can do it. So now on page 60, applying that halacha to Trumas Hadeshin, I won the lottery. Some other Kohen ran into the Azora and took the shovel of ash off the Mizbeach. If another Kohen grabbed the mitzvah from me and he did the Trumas Hadeshin, he will be required to pay me 10 gold coins, whatever the value of those coins were, kedin hachotev mitzvah mechavero, as the regular din, someone that chaps a mitzvah away from someone else has to pay 10 zehuvim for taking away someone's mitzvah. Now you can go to Beis Din, not saying you can do it today, but in times where Beis Din paskin di shailas, you can get 10 zehuvim from a person that took away your mitzvah. The Gemara has a very interesting shaila in this context. Someone was given the honor, the privilege of leading the benching. Now, when we say leading the benching today, it's not the same thing as it meant leading the benching in the times of the Gemara. The same way that being a shliach tzibur, the chazan today, is not the same thing as being the chazan in the days of Chazal. In the days of Chazal, obviously there were no printing presses, there were no sedurim, and the chazan, the word chazan comes from the word chozeh. Chozeh means to see. The chazan he was a seer, because he had a siddur. And how did he have a siddur? He had someone write a siddur for him. You went to a sofer, and the sofer took his feather and parchment, and you ordered a siddur. You came back at some point in time, and you had on parchment rolled up a siddur. Most people, or even the vast majority of people, could not afford such a thing. They didn't have siddur, nor did they know the davening by heart. So they would go to shul, and there would be a chazan, a seer. He can see the davening because he has the cloth. And that's where the Shmona Esrei, the loud Shmona Esrei, the Chazan Shmona Esrei comes from. People would come to shul, the Chazan would say Shmona Esrei out loud, people would listen to every word and answer Amen, and that's how the vast majority of people were Yotzei Shmona Esrei. They didn't know it by heart, and they didn't have a siddur. So that is the Chazan. Today, our minhag is that the Chazan continues to do the Chazoras Hashatz, even though each person says the Shmona Esrei in his silent Amida. We continue with the Chazan repeating the Shmona Esrei for reasons discussed in Shulchan Aruch. But that's how it was in the time of Chazal. Similarly, a person that got the privilege to lead the benching. Today, leading the benching means to say, Rabbi Yisrael Mivel benching, Yishem Hashem Avarach Natav Elam. He's the Mesamen. In the days of the Gemara, the Mesamen, for the most part, was more than Rabbi Yisrael Mivel benching. The Mesamen also said the Birchas Hamazon, because people didn't know benching by heart, and people didn't have a sitter that had benching in it, and there were no benchers given out at weddings, so you would have a bencher. So the privilege, will you honor us with leading the benching, meant Rabbi Yisrael benching, and many times the whole Birchas Hamazon was said by this person, everybody listened and answered Amen. The Gemara has a question. If a particular person was given the kavod, the honor, please lead us in benching, and before he's able to do it, he goes, he washes his hands, he comes back, whatever the case may be. Someone else at the table chaps the mitzvah, and he does the benching. How much money does the chapper own the original person? How do you look at the Birchas Hamazon? Is it a mitzvah to bench, in which case it's one mitzvah, the chapper owes 10 gold coins? Or, since benching is 3 separate brachos, we won't talk about the fourth bracha. The fourth bracha has to do with a takanas chachamim. How much do you pay? You pay per bracha, and there are several brachas, so you may have to pay 30 or 40 gold coins. Or you just pay for the mitzvah Birchas Hamazon, and it's only 10 coins. These are questions the Gemara deals with. By the time of the Gemara, there was this rule: a chaper of a mitzvah pays the person that was supposed to do the mitzvah 10 gold coins. So therefore, again, a person who wins the lottery cannot say to his buddy, you know what, I'm giving you the honor to do the Trumas Hadeshim. You're not allowed to do that. By the same token, if someone chaps the mitzvah from me, he's going to have to pay me the 10 zahuvim. Halacha tes in the pious. Kohen shezocha b'payis echad. A Kohen, you have a Kohen. Today they woke up, it's going to be their day of the week. It's their day of the week. They waited 24 weeks to get here. They're broken down into 6 batei avot, and today is Tuesday. Today is the day. After today, if I'm a Tuesday Kohen, Tuesday meaning I'm Reuven, Tuesday, I'm not going to be back for 24 weeks. And I want to be zocha in public offerings. So I get involved in the first lottery. And I win the first lottery. I'm going to do the Trumas Hadeshen, set up the Maracha Gedola, set up the Maracha Gedola, set up the Maracha Ketana, ignite them, do the mitzvah Shnei Gezir Yetzim. I so much love the Avodah, I've not been here for 24 weeks, that now I want to be part of the second lottery and maybe win that too. Can the winner of a lottery also join into another lottery and maybe win 2 lotteries? Kohen shezocha b'payis echad, a Kohen that won 1 lottery, yachol likonis achakach l'shar hapayasot b'oto yom, he can go into other lotteries and try to win additional avoda of public avoda of the tzibur. V'yesh cholkin, and some disagree, and they say that the winner of a lottery, he's done for that day with public avoda. He can do all kinds of avoda of karbanos that are brought by individuals, but in terms of the avoda for the tzibur, he's already won 1 lottery. Now give other people a turn. That's according to this shita. So it's a machlokes if the winner of a lottery can also try to win a second lottery. Okay, I'm doing this for the first time, I think, since we started the Zoom shiurim a long time ago. Well, it's now a long time ago. And I'm looking at some of the questions. I was I'm not technically advanced, as most people know, and I was taught how to do this. I can actually look at the question. So, from Norman Zabrowski to everyone, how can a Kohen stand in the Kodesh without a hat? We answered that. The hat was put back on the head of the Kohen during the pious, but in an unusual way so that the supervisor knew where he started. From Shulamet Feder, from which group are the Mamunim? Kohanim, or Leviim, or Yisraelim? Mirz Hashem, at some point, we'll learn Maseches Shkolim. Maseches Shkolim talks about the 15 Mamunim. There were 15 supervisors in the Beis HaMikdash. They were not part of this group that came every 24 weeks. They were Kohanim, and they were Mamunim. They were supervisors over the Beis HaMikdash. They stayed there week to week to week to week. They didn't switch off every 24 weeks. Okay, what about the Maracha Kiyum Ha'esh? That's the third Maracha. Who makes sure that there is always wood there? That depends upon what the 24/7 fire. If the 24/7 fire needs additional logs brought there, depends what time of the day. So if it would be in the morning, most likely the Kohen who won the first pious would be responsible to add wood there. As the day went on, if Kohanim saw that there was lacking wood, they would probably be able to bring the Kiyum Ha'esh, the fire for that third Maracha themselves. Shelley Davis, where does he get the fire from? We talked about it, either from the Beis HaMokeh or the Beis HaNitzutz. I thought on Maracha Eish Kiyum there was always fire. Yes, there was always fire, but there was a mitzvah lahavi min ha'hedyot. So the fire that was in the Beis HaMokeh, which was made by a human being, the fire in the Beis HaNitzutz that was from a human being, was therefore used to bring to the Mizbeach, because even though the Mizbeach had miracle fire on it, they still brought the fire made by a human being, which came from the Beis HaMokeh and the Beis HaNitzutz. There are some shittas that hold that if there's still a fire kindling on the third Maracha of Kiyum, it could be used to light the other Marachas. Okay, we've dealt with all of these. Okay, may someone therefore be permitted to pass up the privilege of leading the benching? So that's a very interesting question. We see that done all the time. And that comes down to, Gemara talks about in the 7th parak of Brachos, who is to lead the benching? The Balabayas, a guest, and depending if a particular person is required al pi halacha to lead the benching, then he should not pass on that privilege except if it's going to be to a greater person sitting at the table. In other words, if the Balabayas said to a particular person, why don't you lead the benching? And that particular person has his Rebbe also at the table, that particular person would be able to say, I would like to give the benching to my Rebbe who is also at the table. But that's different than the lottery system where a person actually won the lottery and is supposed to do the Shumas Hadeshin, and he decides of his own will that he's going to give up his privilege. Yeah, okay, we dealt with the Maracha Kiyum Ha'esh. Okay, so that is the V'hashet Es Avoda for today. And we've done the pious Rishon, the first lottery. Bli Neder will continue tomorrow with page 61, Bilush HaAzorah. And that's the Mishnah that described to us in Tamid a little while ago, that the Kohanim, after the Kohen went to the Trumas Hadeshin and did the Trumas Hadeshin, Kohanim would leave the Beis HaMokeh Some would go to the west, some would go to the east, and start inspecting the whole Azara to make sure that all the vessels were in their place so that the avoda could be done efficiently without someone having to pause the middle and say, I'm missing a vessel. So there was an inspection done in the Azara, and that's the bilush of the Azara. I'm not sure what that question means, what happened on Yom Kippur for Mrs. Beck. I don't know what that question means. All the avoda of Yom Kippur, we learned the avodas Yom Kippur after we learned Maseches Tamid. All the avoda of Yom Kippur was done by the Kohen Gadol. According to the Rambam, that means not only did the Kohen Gadol do the avoda designated for Yom Kippur, he did all the avoda, including the daily regular avoda. So who would do the Trumas Hadeshin on Yom Kippur? The Kohen Gadol. Who would light the Maracha? The Kohen Gadol. Who would shech the Korban Tamid? The Kohen Gadol. And he would shech the Tamid in a way, as we learned, he would just sever the two tubes in the animal's neck, enough to make the shechita kosher, and then someone else would take over the shechita, and the Kohen Gadol would take the vessel and collect the blood, because collecting the blood, Kabbalah Sadam, is navoda, and the Kohen has to do everything on Yom Kippur. So the Kohen Gadol is the designated Kohen for all the avoda on Yom Kippur. Not only Yom Kippur avoda, but everything in the Beis Hamikdash, at least according to the Rambam.